kicking things off with you right at the front for the first time, what I imagine feels like a long time. How was that? What were the emotions like being back at the front of this grid again?
Yeah, of course, nice to be in the front of the road after many years, but yeah, since 19, but 20 I was there, but it's true that tomorrow when the green light appear in the lights, everybody are in the 0 points in the standing, so we will try to start in the best way possible and try to defend the title.
I have to say, the good news is when we last spoke to you at the test, you didn't have as much colour to your face as you do now. You look a lot better.
I was full white and yeah, as you know, problems in the stomach, but now I come back with a normal energy, so this will help a bit, especially not speed, don't expect more speed, but just to be more focused and more precise.
Do you still feel those butterflies?
Always. I mean, when I will miss that butterflies, better to stay home.
Mark, great to see you here. Have a great season.
Thank you very much.
There we go. Great to be joined by the world champion Marc Marquez to kick things off. Myself, Jack Appleyard, and Lewis Suddabyr. Sorry, Lewis, but when the world champion's waited, we've got to chat to the world champion. And it, as we said, looks far better. That is the key story. If you weren't with us, welcome along to MotoGP in 2026. Myself and Lewis have been here for the testing over the past couple of days, last weekend, and Mark was white as a ghost. He was really unwell. As a result, 3 separate crashes. He didn't have a good pre-season campaign, specifically here at the Thai circuit, but looks far better now and looks ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, he said the third crash he had on day 2, the third of the 3 he had through the weekend, was he couldn't quite keep his concentration together because he was so under the weather, really struggling for energy, struggling for concentration. So Marc Marquez has put all that behind him now, and it would appear he's also put the physical issues behind him largely as well, because of course remember he ended last season 5 races early. That crash in Indonesia on the first lap with Marco Bezzecchi that injured his shoulder. We didn't see him again on track for the rest of the year. Of course, did take a little bit of time through Sepang to get himself back up to speed once again, but I don't think he's worried about the shoulder anymore. He's clearly not worried about illness. What he might be more worried about coming to this new season is that the chasing pack look like they've closed in a touch from certainly this time last year. Yeah,
which of course we're going to touch on over the next 40 minutes before we then have the first pre-event press conference of the year. Mark will be there alongside, of course, the men that joined him on that championship podium last year. Brother Alex Marquez, who could forget that memorable story, brothers first and second in a world championship for the very first time, and Marco Bezzecchi, arguably the surprise package last year. But I think we would probably say we get onto those title challengers. Bez, would you say best placed coming into the season, in particular right here from what we've seen during pre-season, to take the fight to Mark?
Well, I've always felt, as long as Marc Marquez has been in MotoGP, the best way to beat Marc Marquez is to be on a better bike than him. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying the Aprilia necessarily is that yet, but it is certainly closer. Pecco Bagnaia and Alex Marquez for sure are going to be there or thereabouts. They're stronger, I think, than they were last year, but they're on the same package, and it's very difficult to beat Marc Marquez on equal machinery. No rider has ever done it. But Marco Bezzecchi on an Aprilia, which took serious steps forward through the second half of last season. But as I said up in the box with Bertie about half an hour ago, the big question from the latter part of last season was just how good is this Aprilia, because they haven't gone up against Marc Marquez at his peak. The last time we really saw that, if you go back to maybe Misano last year, where Best pushed Marc all the way in that race, but ultimately didn't beat him. Of course, Japan, not a strong circuit for Aprilia, and then, of course, we all know what happened in Indonesia. We're going to get our answer this weekend, and in the first few Grand Prix, have Aprilia truly got a Marquez beater now? Not just in terms of their bike, but in terms of the riders on it. Because Marco Bezzecchi is as good as he's ever been in his career. He's elevated himself, too, as a MotoGP rider, and Aprilia have elevated their performance level, too, to a level where Marc Marquez and Ducati are taking them seriously.
And I think that's going to be one of the key questions going into the start of the year, because you're absolutely right to bring up that San Marino Grand Prix. I remember being in Parc Ferme afterwards, and despite finishing second, Marco described it as the best performance of his motorcycling career. But even when he was at his very best, he still couldn't beat Marc. And he will have to, at the start of the year, to gather some momentum, to show that he's ready to be in this fight for the championship, get the better of Marc in a one-on-one duel early in the year, which is something he doesn't have on his CV yet, and that is a big omission off that CV right now going into the year.
Yeah, Aprilia have definitely improved the straight up and down braking on this RSGP. Igura said that was the big step they've made with the bike for this year. That will show up around a circuit such as this, which particularly The first half of it is all straights and heavy braking zones and acceleration zones out of them. Second half of it is a little more fast and twisty. So there's no question that the Aprilia has improved in terms of its weaker points going into the new season. So if Aprilia are competitive enough to challenge Ducati here, then that can only spell good things for them the longer the season goes on. Because we know that Aprilia have got their strong circuits on the calendar. We know that when we go to the faster, more flowing venues, the Silverstones, the Assens of this world, Mandalika too, we know that Aprilia have got arguably the best bike on the grid. But in these conditions, in these sort of track configurations, they haven't previously had a bike that can match the Ducatis. Potentially now they do.
Yes, that is going to be the thing that we have to see right at the start of the season. And for me, I think, given from what we've seen throughout pre-season, I think we can answer that question that right now they're on a level playing field. They're in a position to fight.
Bez broke the lap record at the test here on Sunday.
One man that will be able to answer the question of just how impressive the Aprilia is, and more importantly, how impressive the 2026 Ducati is this man here. Let's have a look. Fabio Di Giannantonio just showing his, well, the man that shares his management, Luca Lanetta, now stepping up to Moto2, the opportunity to jump aboard his MotoGP machine. I'm going to, if I can, step in Fabio once he's finished chatting. Luca, very sorry. We'll come back to you in a second. Welcome to MotoGP 2026, Fabio. How are you? All good?
Really good. Finally, we're starting. I'm really, I can't wait, honestly. I look forward to be on track, to really do the shakedown, real shakedown for the season. Super pumped, honestly.
And we were just discussing then about the title challenges this year. I think, given what we've seen Ducati bring throughout pre-season, we can put your name in the mix. The 2026 Ducati seems like a step forwards. We described it as a more consistent motorcycle. Would you go along with that?
I don't want to say much because I'm a little superstitious. But yeah, since that the bike is a bit more constant in terms of feeling, it's a bit more honest, so that's great. But we only done two different tracks of the season, so we need to wait a little long. But for sure, we have a really great package to fight, and why not? I think it's a great opportunity this year, so we want to fight for something big.
Feels like Aprilia has been making very strong progress. Can you feel them breathing down your necks, pushing you forward?
For sure, competitors are coming, or maybe they are there already, because at the end, Aprilia is looking really, really strong. But as always, it is a fight. It will be a fight all the season long. So I want to be there. I want to be prepared with all the crew. We have good vibes. We just have to put all the things together. I think we can fight also with Aprilias and other manufacturers.
You're one of the almost experienced heads in MotoGP now. This is your fourth season.
Don't say
I didn't use the word old. I didn't use the word. I said experienced. I made sure I qualified it. But your fourth season in MotoGP, physically, mentally.
Fifth one.
Fifth season, 2026. Yeah, you started the same time as me, so I should have known that. Is this the most ready you felt physically, mentally? Do you feel perhaps in a better place than you have for any season to this point?
First of all, it's incredible how it changes between from one year to the other. Young gun to the most experienced rider in 1 year difference.
Are there now grey hairs under the hats? Do we need to check?
Some there are, so don't say this. But yeah, part of all these jokes, I feel great. Honestly, I feel quite mature. I feel all in one with the team. That is my first time that I've had the same crew for 2 years in a row. And then, yeah, I feel great physically. Honestly, I'm in top form. It's also normal as an athlete at 27, 28. This is the age where you reach the peak. So I feel in the right moment, with the right team, with the right bike. I just want to push, honestly. I'm fully focused now.
Do you have clear targets in your mind, results-wise, of what you want to achieve this season, or have you set expectations for what you want to achieve?
It's not about expectations. It's my personal goal. I wanna fight for the championship, and it's not a secret or something. It's not something that I have to say because I wanna be on an air. It's just I have the best bike. I have the best team possible. So I think I have an opportunity to fight, and I wanna make it.
Well, great to see you, Fabio. I'm loving the number once again on the front. I have to say, of all the bikes, I love the new black this year. The helmet, everything about the look is good. It looks fast. Let's just hope it is now fast.
I think it's much more aggressive this year with the black. For sure, white was quite elegant, but with the black is super racing. Delivery is fantastic. It's quite iconic with this yellow. I think the team has done, with Aldo Drudi, has done an incredible job of making it quite recognizable and quite iconic somehow for the team. And then, yeah, for sure, I'm quite proud of my helmet, designed by myself, as always. So, yeah, we are good looking. We just have to be fast.
You can see Vittoria is the name of the bike. Was that the same as last year? Is it a new name every year?
Let's say that every team changed the bike's name. So for this is the third year that my bikes are Victoria and Stella, that are the two girls, the two daughters of my staff. Victoria is the daughter of Uccio, Stella of Dado. So there were these two daughters. I wanted to give them a part of them on my bikes, you know.
That's beautiful. Well, Fabio, thank you for chatting with us. I hope that as Luca, I think he's run away. Oh no, there he is in the background. How's he going to get on in Moto2 this year?
He's a great rider. Honestly, he's super talented. He's fast. For sure, it will take a while to adapt to the new chapter, new category. But he's a super down-to-earth guy. He works a lot at home. We work together also, and also I learned many things from him too while we're training. It's like this, when you grow up, sometimes the young guns are, they have already something that you built, they already have it. So it's great to have him as a friend, and I try to give him as much advice as possible. But I think with the Bosco Scuro team, we will do great things.
Have a great year.
Thank you.
There we go. Guys. Great to chat with the number 49, Fabio Di Giannantonio. A great character, really is, and someone that, as we've said, we anticipate is going to be up there fighting for big things this year. After a challenging 2025, he had much of the same problems as Pecco Bagnaia. We mentioned it throughout pre-season. It really does feel as though Gigi Dall'Igna and the Bologna factory's work over the winter months has allowed them to bring a package where mainly Bagnaia is in a much, much better position. You can just see him up and down pit lane, smiling, laughing, joking. We saw none of that for the vast majority of last year, and also for Digia as well. He doesn't want to get carried away. He's got that typical Italian superstition, which a lot of them do have, but you can tell there's that quiet air of confidence that he feels this could be a big year for him.
Yeah, as you say, it was easy to forget last year with Pecco dropping off being the big story, that it wasn't just Pecco that struggled to adapt to the 25, but Di Giannantonio did as well. I think what Fabio Di Giannantonio quite clearly has to improve upon if he's to fight for victories this season is his qualifying performance. Clearly, over a single lap last year, Fabio Di Giannantonio just didn't have the pace to match what he clearly had in race trim. We often saw, in sprints especially, we saw Di Giannantonio just rocket up the order as the sprint went through. But actually, he was doing so from generally third, at the best second row. We seldom saw him on the front row. I think he went saw him on the front row once last year back in Austin. So if he can improve his qualifying and put the race pace and the tyre management that he's had in his recent MotoGP pass, then for sure Fabio Di Giannantonio's good enough to win Grand Prix because he's done it already. But that is the clear shortfall. That's the clear improvement he needs to make. He needs to be stronger on Friday afternoons and Saturday mornings.
Yeah, and Pablo Nieto said that to us during the pre-season campaign. So the first acid test for him will be tomorrow afternoon. Can you believe? Tomorrow afternoon, it all gets going. I cannot wait. Friday afternoon, of course. If you are new to MotoGP this year, then we have our first free practice session on Friday morning. Practice on Friday afternoon is a 60-minute session where the first two-thirds will see the riders trying to get as much race prep in as possible. The final third is must-see TV as they try and make sure they automatically qualify for Q2 inside that top 10. And then, of course, Saturday, qualifying in the morning, sprint in the afternoon, and join us for Grand Prix Sunday. I know there's lots of you at home that will be saying, yes, Jack, we know how MotoGP works, but just in case some of you are tuning in for the first time, there's your reminder anyway of how the season is going to unfold. Right, speaking of how the season is going to unfold, myself and Lewis are going to touch on as the rain starts to fall. Oh dear, I wasn't expecting this. Has any of you brought any umbrellas for us? Whilst we go and run and get some umbrellas, we'll speak afterwards about those men hoping to take the fight to Marc Marquez in 2026. But what kind of records can be broken this year? Let's take a look as we dive for cover here in the rain in Thailand. MotoGP in 2026 promises to be one of the most defining seasons in the history of the sport. As an era comes to an end, records are set to tumble as the grid gets turned upside down behind the scenes. At the centre of it all stands Marc Marquez, a rider already etched into legend, now chasing immortality. 7 is a special number across motorsport. Valentino Rossi, Michael Schumacher, Lewis Hamilton, and the defending MotoGP king all sit on 7 world crowns, meaning the Spaniard has one goal in 2026, surpass those modern icons and draw level with the great Giacomo Agostini on 8 MotoGP titles, something that hasn't been achieved for more than half a century. But that's not all. The number 93 trails Valentino Rossi's record of 89 career MotoGP wins by 16. To catch him, he'd need nothing short of the greatest winning season the sport has ever seen. When has history ever come easy though? The battlefield, bigger and broader than ever before. 22 circuits, 18 countries, and for the first time since 2004, MotoGP returns to Brazil, a nation ready to erupt. Marquez has already conquered 22 different circuits in his career, but 3 remain untouched. Goiânia, Lombok and Portimao. Conquer them all and he surpasses Mick Doohan's record of MotoGP victories across 24 unique venues. But this isn't a one-man story. Far from it. Every team on the grid has now tasted MotoGP success. The margins have never been tighter, meaning Ducati's dominance, with now 88 consecutive podium finishes, is under serious threat in their centenary year. The Ducati Lenovo team hold the keys to the kingdom and enter the season sat on 99 MotoGP victories. For how long will the champagne be put on ice? Aprilia are rising, fresh off their greatest ever season in 2025, finishing in the top 3 for the first time. Can they go 2 places better and fight for the ultimate prize in 2026? Then there's Pedro Acosta and KTM. 42 MotoGP races, no wins. The podiums keep coming, but victory remains elusive. 3 more rostrums and Acosta claims an unwanted record, the most MotoGP podiums without a single win. Pressure is building. Across the paddock, giants are rebuilding. Honda's factory team hunting a first victory in 5 long years, whilst Yamaha, armed with a bold new V4 engine, believes 2026 could finally end their own 4-season drought. And keep your eyes on the rookies too, including 3-time World Superbike champion Toprak Razgatlioglu. If the Turkish superstar wins a race, he becomes the first Superbike champion to triumph in MotoGP since Ben Spies in 2011. Back in Brazil, hope rides with Diogo Moreira, aiming to deliver the nation's first MotoGP victory since Alex Barros in 2005. And off track, things are going to get real interesting real quick. Contracts expiring, new regulations looming. We look set to see the biggest shake-up the sport has ever seen. Records, redemption, revolution. This isn't just another season. This is MotoGP 2026. So there we go, so much to look forward to in 2026. Records will tumble. As we mentioned, the on-track stories are going to be just as fascinating as some of the off-track stuff, which has really got into overdrive ever since we came back from the new year. Over the next, half an hour or so, we're going to walk down pit lane and try and preview each factory, each team, each rider. So whoever you're supported up and down the MotoGP grid, you can either get excited or maybe temper those expectations. Starting behind us with the Honda HRC Castrol concern, you can see the magnificent Michael Laverty of TNT Sports just doing a nice little feature that'll be coming your way if you're watching in the UK and Ireland over this weekend. And that motorcycle, the RC213V, the 2026 version anyway, Lewis, was the talk of the town in Sepang. Aleix Espargaro branding it the best MotoGP bike he has ever ridden. They were fast in Malaysia. but seems as though when they came here to Thailand, certainly over the 2 days of testing we had, there was a little bit of a reality check for them.
Yes, as you rightly pointed out when we covered them at Sepang, Honda have done more laps around that circuit than any other on the calendar. It's their preferred testing circuit, certainly this part of the world at least. Aleix Espargaro has done hundreds of laps around there. Taka Nakagami spent Christmas in Sepang, so keen he was to put some kilometres on that new bike. He's also been doing some testing on the 2027 bike. Feels like 2027 is Honda's big opportunity rather than 2026. That's not to say they won't be competitive and that they won't get some podiums through this year. I think when track conditions and circumstances allow, for sure they're going to be very, very strong. But I think we saw here in particular last weekend at the test that they're not as fast as Ducati around here, nor are they as fast as Aprilia. They're on a similar sort of level to KTM. It feels like at the moment with 6 Ducatis, perhaps maybe discount Michele Pirro with all due respect on the bike that Fermin Aldeguer should have been riding if he wasn't injured here. 5 Ducatis and 4 Aprilias might well occupy 9 of the 10 spots by the end of tomorrow in qualifying 2, which will leave only 1 left potentially for Honda or KTM to fight for. So that may be where Joan Mir, Johann Zarco, Luca Marini, maybe not Diogo Moreira, of course, because he's making his debut, might have to just temper their expectations here. For sure, opportunities will come because the Honda is better. The problem for them is so are the others.
Yes, absolutely. And looking at each ride in particular, Joan Mir, of course, a world champion in his own regard, the 2020 MotoGP King. He feels, we spoke to him on After the Flag during pre-season testing, as motivated, as ready as he has been for a MotoGP campaign for a very long time. He has been at the lowest of lows, and not only is he seeing light at the end of the tunnel, it feels like he's almost out of it now. Yeah,
I think what Joan Mir needs to do is, and I think this may come with having a better bike, he needs to try and finish more races. Sounds like a very simple thing to say. And you do wonder, as he proved in 2020 when he won the championship, being uber consistent, if he has that more competitive package, he doesn't need to force the issue quite so much. He might not see so many crashes out of races for Joan Mir. Because I have a real feeling if that Honda's good enough, as we saw last year, when the Honda was good enough to get results, it was generally Joan Mir that got them. Yes, Johann Zarco started the season very well with that podium in Silverstone and the win, weather assisted, in Le Mans. But in the second half of the year, the rider that was going to get the big result for Honda was Joan Mir. So I think he will carry that motivation into the season because he knows he's got a bike that he can work with this year. This particular circuit, though, might not be one of those. I think when we get to Brazil, when we get to perhaps more open flowing circuits later on into the season, expect him and Honda to be much stronger. But here, they might just have to accept that this circuit ain't for them.
And that rain you can hear in the background is intensifying here, which is certainly going to make it interesting to go throughout the weekend. Let's continue walking down pit lane. Then just finally, I know a lot of you will be interested in the 2027 rider market. It does seem as though Joan Mir riding for his future at Honda, in the mix to remain there with, in the factory team anyway, the likes of Diogo Moreira, who, if he has a positive start, could well be promoted. One name that has been linked very strongly as well is David Alonso to be moving up from Moto2, with potentially Honda best place to grab his signature right now. Teammate Luca Marini news filtering through the paddock today that Yamaha maybe are going to partner him up with Jorge Martin, and I have to say, if that is the case, what a fantastic signing that would be for Yamaha, a factory that we will get onto. Obviously struggling, there is no better developer of a bike than Luca Marini, which means I think that would be a very smart signing indeed. On to LCR, Diogo Moreira had a quiet pre-season, but we feel as though he's someone who is going to need time to be able to show his true colours. Whereas for Johann Zarco, we heard from him just before he went to take the photo. He is confident he can hit the ground running this year with a very fast Honda.
Yeah, it took Johann Zarco longer to get up to speed with this new Honda, but it feels like he has now got there by the end of pre-season testing. So look out for him. He seems pretty bullish, as you said, about his optimistic hopes for the season. And if there's more weather like this through the weekend, then that will definitely play into Johann Zarco's hands, because it's absolutely bucketing it down just over to our right, which is why we're staying under the shelter of the pit building. Yeah, Diogo Moreira, the thread through his career, the general trend is in year 2, Diogo Moreira gets to grips with it. That's not to say that year 1's going to be a write-off for Diogo, but it is going to take time to him to adjust. He has not had by any means the ideal preparation. Nope. The benefit that he should have got from the shakedown was pretty much wiped out by technical problems, and then he crashed during the Sepang test. So it's fair to say that Diogo Moreira is a little bit on his back foot from where a rookie should be coming into his first season in MotoGP. but the Honda is clearly a better bike for a rookie to jump on than it was for Sonket Chantra last year. Honda trust Diogo Moreira with the latest kit, which they didn't do at this stage of last season with Sonket Chantra. So there will be circuits, there will be days where you'll suddenly see Diogo Moreira and think, how is Diogo Moreira that high up? Because he's so ferociously talented, and he will not be overawed by the company that he's keeping this year.
No, absolutely. Right, as we move further down, we'll try and keep our cameraman Ramon dry as the rain really does bucket down here, but we'll skip around our colleagues at DAZN, Vasco Ruiz and Paul Espargaro, doing a fine job as ever, to touch on Aprilia and Jorge Martin, who, above all, Lewis, spoke to him just a moment ago. How good is it to see him here, fully fit, at last, and ready to attack a season after what was a nightmare defence in 2025.
I was so impressed with him. It's a silly thing to say about a world champion, but so impressed with him at the Podium test because, of course, he came in completely cold from having had no real pre-season. Of course, didn't ride in Sepang, didn't ride really safe for some token laps, I'd say, in Valencia. He wasn't really fully fit by any means there. Of course, we then knew he was going to go through further surgeries before he rode the bike in, which is why he missed the Sepang test. And he was essentially on the pace straight away, wasn't he? Compared to, I think, what we all expected Jorge Martin to be. He put in a lap in the second morning, a low 129, where he said he was still quite a way away from his maximum potential, made a few mistakes. So that electric Jorge Martin single lap pace, it would appear, is back. Because once he puts a lap together, we know Jorge Martin is going to be super strong. Serial pole winner, serial sprint winner in his peak with Ducati when he won the World Championship. And we saw last year on the Aprilia, his race pace wasn't a problem. It was qualifying well. It would appear that he's got on top of that now. So I think we're going to see, at the very least, sprint wins and pole positions from Jorge Martin this season. On Saturdays, I think it's going to be a real problem for the likes of Marc Marquez and his teammate Marco Bezzecchi. And I think on Sundays, he's not going to be far away either.
It's funny you say that. I was chatting to someone whilst the photo was ongoing who knows what they're talking about, and they said, do not be surprised we see Jorge Martin fighting for sprint victory on Saturday. He was able to get down to a 29.1, half a second away from the lap record. He said he did that lap time with consummate ease. When he puts his visor down in Q2, you would imagine that Martin has got another half second in his locker, and if he's on the front row of the grid, we've seen it before, he can escape, he can bolt in those sprints, so he may well be the underdog, a bit of a dark horse going into the season. One man that is no longer an underdog is his teammate, Marco Bezzecchi. We're going to hear from him, who is speaking in a broadcaster's set earlier today in just a few moments' time. We touched on him earlier in the show. He's a championship contender. How do you think the pressure, the weight of expectation, which has really changed, the dynamic within the box is going to be so different now to 12 months ago? Do you think he's ready to handle everything that comes with that?
I think we'll perhaps be able to answer that best on Sunday. If he's in a battle with Marc Marquez, as you alluded to earlier, that's one thing he's going to have to get over. If it is a mental hurdle of beating Marc Marquez head-to-head on track, he's going to have to do that if he's going to win the World Championship. Marco seems a pretty unflappable guy, but yeah, I think you're right. He's no longer going to be seen as an underdog this season, and he rose to the challenge last season. There is no question about that. He was put in a very difficult position, essentially carrying Aprilia on his back, basically riding solo for them. But he rose to that challenge, so Marco will be expected to rise to that challenge once again this season. And Aprilia have made it very, very clear that Marco, not solely, but Marco is certainly their future, and they'll be expecting a title challenge from him.
And again, someone who spends a lot of time inside the VR46 saying that they have never seen Marco as determined, training as hard as he has done over these winter months. He's ready to fight this year. Let's hear what the man who was fastest at the test last weekend had to say ahead of round one. Here's Marco Bezzecchi.
Super ready, super happy, of course, because testing is good, but racing is better. So very, very happy to start finally the new season, and can't wait to jump on the bike tomorrow. Well, the atmosphere, I have to be honest, has always been fantastic inside the box. Also last year, of course, we've been through tough times at the beginning of the year, but the mindset from everyone, from the factory, from all the engineers, and from myself too, was super positive. Was a new adventure for me, and was nice to start. This year, of course, the approach of the pre-season was a bit different, but anyway, the mindset was super cool, super relaxed, and everyone was in a good mood. Fortunately, of course, we were a little bit faster compared last year, so he's been positive through Sepang and also here. So yeah, overall satisfied. Well, being completely honest, in Sepang, of course, in the time attack I was quite quick, but in terms of pace I was not enough quick to fight for the top position. I think that Alex Pecco, Mark, but also the VR46 guys and Pedro were super fast. So I was there, but was not enough. Here maybe I was a little bit better, but as you know, during the testing the track gets amazing. It's super grippy and it's normal to make very good lap times. So the race weekend is always different. Of course, we improved overall a little bit everything. The bike is completely new, so we needed a bit of time to understand, but then fortunately we started to feel the improvement. Of course, we still have to adapt and to find always a bit more, because the old bike, we know the old bike a lot better compared to this one. So this will take a bit of time, but at the end we are here for this, so let's go. Well, I hope, of course, to start in a good way. This is my target compared last year. I want to start in a good way the first part of the championship. That was something that I missed a bit last year. I expect the guys that I said before to fight for the top, so hopefully I can be there with them. At the moment, I think that Mark is clearly the favorite. Is the champion from last year. He dominated last season, winning the championship by many races before. So I think that Mark is clearly the favorite. Hopefully I can try to fight a little bit with them.
So there we go, great to hear from Marco Bezzecchi on the eve of this new campaign. He's certainly one contender for Aprilia. Another one we have to touch on, Ayagura, the Trackhouse racing man, really did grab the headlines at the Buriram test. Is it a stretch to say that, well, I don't think it's a stretch to say he's a podium winner. Is he a race-winning contender, looking at the form going into the opening round of the year?
I feel like race win might be a stretch, but
let me get carried away, Lewis.
Let's see where he qualifies first. If he's on the front row of the grid, then I think you have to take him seriously. We know he's a bit of a Buriram specialist, not just from last year when he was 4th in the sprint, 5th in the Grand Prix, but of course won the Moto2 Championship here the year prior to that. He loves this Buriram circuit. It suits his style. He's always gone very well on heavy braking circuits, stop-and-go layouts, of which a lot of this is. So why not? If it's going to happen anywhere for Ayagura this year, then circuits like this would be the area. And as I said earlier on, he pinpointed straight up and down braking as a real area that Aprilia have improved their RSGP for this season. And if it's going to suit anyone and benefit anyone, it's Ayagura.
We've only got 5 minutes, so we'll rattle through some of the other contenders quickly. KTM, it feels a lot comes down to the shoulders of Pedro Acosta. What kind of a position are they in? What would be a good result for Pedro on Sunday?
Top 6, I think, for Pedro. That won't please him, but I think that's what he's probably racing for. The top 10, until around about half an hour before when the few late time attacks went in, the top 10 at the test was 5 Ducatis, 4 Aprilias and Pedro Acosta. So Pedro Acosta, he's going to have a real battle on, first of all, tomorrow to make Q2 automatically, because he's going to be in a battle probably with the Hondas and potentially Maverick Vinales as well on the Tech 3 KTM to get into that top 10 and get into Q2, because we know qualifying wasn't exactly Pedro Acosta's strength last year either. But it would appear from pre-season testing that they have made a step forward in what was their obvious weakness, which was getting a rear tyre in the Grand Prix. Didn't really show up for Pedro Acosta here because he crashed out on the second lap, but it was a clear weakness for them. It's whether they've improved enough to truly get them in the game with Ducati and Aprilia. Much like Honda, I suspect, with Pedro Acosta, there will be venues and there will be weekends where he is in the fight for genuine podium battles. I'm not sure this is going to be one of them.
Yamaha, Fabio Quartararo, the less said the better.
Yeah, Yamaha are 5th, and a very distant 5th, it feels like, coming into this new season, because we talked about all the manufacturers having all made improvements, but Yamaha clearly haven't. It's kind of what we expected to a certain extent. We expected as Manu goes through the shot, Maverick Vinales' crew chief, getting involved in our live broadcast, off to see his rider. So Yamaha, of course, switching to the V4, which we've known for, well, we've known since Valencia, but essentially we knew before that. We knew they were switching to the V4 long before they announced it publicly. And they had all sorts of problems. If you didn't follow the Sepang test, they missed the date entirely because they identified some problems that they didn't quite understand the cause for. So they had to go back, look at all the data, talk with the base back in Japan, and then understand what was going on before they could go back out on track on the third day. Fabio Quartararo hurt himself, broke his finger at Sepang. He's now recovered from that, so he doesn't have to worry about that this weekend. But at the end of the test, we had Michele Pirro on the Gresini Ducati, of course, is in for Fermin Aldeguer. We had Diogo Moreira, who was there or thereabouts, and the 4 Yamahas at the back of the field. If Fabio Quartararo is anywhere near qualifying 2 at the end of tomorrow or on Saturday morning, then that would be as good as the World Championship he won, quite frankly, because Yamaha are undercooked, to put it mildly. They're expecting it to be minimum 5 or 6 Grand Prix before they're anything resembling competitive. Yeah,
it's going to be a long season for Yamaha, a tough start to the year. The same, we hope, isn't going to be said for Pecco Bagnaia. I've put it to him about 1 million times over the past 12 months. Is he back? He's going to wait for the results to speak for themselves. Let's hear from the former world champion on the eve of the new campaign. How good is Bagnaia feeling? Let's find out.
Feel good. I think it's nice to start from here again, and now just I would like to have fun. Now it's clear how much I was happier compared last year. So let's see, it will be a very difficult season, tough season in terms of riders, title contenders. So it will be important to improve my performance from last year and trying to be more constant. The possibility of a top 3 is there, and we just need to fight a lot to try to achieve it. I think I need to improve a bit on some braking area, and I will try to do it. The latest is that the championship is starting, so focus on it.
Thank you, Pecco.
So there we go. Great to hear from Pecco Bagnaia. It does feel like there is that confidence to him again, and of course referencing at the end the hot rumours that he's penned a 4-year deal with Aprilia starting from next year. Finally, last, what we feel will be title contenders, Alex Marquez, the number 73. What a year it was. Took a huge step in 2025. The big question, though, as ever, for a rider when they take a massive step one year, is to pick themselves up, go again, and try and match it. That's the big question of Alex now.
Yeah, this is going to sound like a massive contradiction, but I think Alex Marquez is undoubtedly stronger this year, but I don't think he's going to finish runner-up in the championship this year. The competition is so much stronger and so much more competitive at the top of the field, with Marco Bezzecchi on the Aprilia, with Pecco Bagnaia seemingly much more like his own self. Once again, this is Alex's bike just behind us. It was interesting following the Ducatis in pre-season, trying to decide which aero they were going to run. Alex Marquez, from a very early stage, looked like he'd settled on the aero they ran last year on the GP24. He feels mentally so much more ready for this season, because I don't think it almost took him by surprise how good he was at the start of last year, able to push Marc Marquez the way he did. So I think for sure we're going to see Alex Marquez win Grand Prix again, and I think he might well challenge deeper into the season than he did last year, but the competition is so much stronger, so he's going to have to raise his level to go with them.
I'm extremely concerned, Lewis, that these Gresini mechanics are about to start this bike up, because if they are, none of you guys at home are going to hear us. So we'll stick with us at the moment. As you can see, this is going to be fascinating, actually. This right here, much talked about, is the 2026 whole shot device that Gigi Dall'Igna spoke about as being a huge step forward. It feels as though this is the thing right here that has allowed the GP26 to be so much more consistent. When you look at the aero package as well, you can see on the other one here, this is the 2024 aero with the additions, as a KTM starts up in the background, the 2025 rear aero, which are these additions here. So it's a bit of a mix and match job for Alex Marquez, but very rarely do we get the opportunity to be up close and personal with MotoGP bikes like that. So there you go, a bit of an idea of what is going on. So with that, I think it's about time that we kick off 2026. What do you think, Lewis? We're getting drowned out by the sound of MotoGP bikes. That is their way of telling us that it's time to get going. Marc Marquez, the man you heard from right at the start of the show, is raring to go as he tried to defend his MotoGP World Championship for the first time since 2018 and 2019. Who will be able to take the fight to him? Will it be the Aprilias? Will it be Marco Bezzecchi? Will brother Alex Marquez once again be breathing down his neck? Or will we see a resurgent Pecco Bagnaia? What a fascinating year lies ahead, and it all kicks off right now here at the Chang International Circuit in Buriram. Over to Matt Burt for the first press conference of the year.